Shabbat Shalom, my friends. We are in an almost quiet period of the year. Almost quiet because unlike 2014, Israel's battle with Hamas and Gaza did not extend throughout the whole summer. Almost quiet. Almost quiet because a new and seemingly fragile Israeli governing coalition has so far avoided the worst landmarks of political acrimony. Almost quiet because the pandemic, now properly renamed the pandemic of the unvaccinated, is not killing at the levels reached 6 months ago. Though the Delta variant is throwing our plans for a full emergence into the world into a cocked hat, whatever a cocked hat is. Almost quiet, because despite the vile vitriol still flowing out of the halls of Congress, it seems that it just might be possible for some very narrowly focused compromises to be reached. Almost quiet, because despite almost endless frustrations and a daily litany of new infections, the Tokyo Olympics are still managing at times to capture our hearts with narratives of dreams being fulfilled and obstacles overcome. Good stories. Our Sedra is Eikev, Deuteronomy 7:12 and following. Moses' last day, or days on earth, are rapidly unspooling. Fundamental messages are delivered with all of the wisdom that the aged leader could muster. Wisdom acquired through 40 years of leadership, through 40 years of being the one who delivers God's intentions to the Israelites, through 40 transformational years wherein escaping slaves begin to forge the structural basis that will make possible the emergence of a very singular people. But today I can't get past the very first word of our Sedra, Eikev. The word means as a result of. As a result of the people's choice to obey God's will, if such is their choice, there will then be a nurturing stream of blessings emerging from the divine will, like the 4 rivers that emerged in the book of Genesis from the Garden of Eden. Like a carefully curated display of fine candies in a high-end confectionery. Those blessings cannot help but be irresistible. God will love you and bless you. God will make your agricultural produce abundant beyond accounting. Your storehouses will be filled with the 7 species, wheat and barley and grapes and figs and pomegranates, olives and date honey. God will shield you from illness while sending the most potent of diseases against those who would threaten you. Your borders, catch this, will stretch from Lebanon and the Euphrates to the Mediterranean Sea. The quid pro quo is self-evident. Revere God, serve God with all your hearts and souls. Protect the widows and the orphans and the strangers who dwell within your gates. Eikev, as a result of your faithful obedience, all of the fudge and turtles and peanut M&Ms and Willy Wonka's very best displayed on the shelves of the candy store will be yours. Eikev, your behavioral choices will yield a very good life. I repeat, your behavioral choices will yield a very good life. All summer long, I've been taking a daily 3-mile walk along the Venice Strand, a stretch of magnificent beach and a myriad of honky-tonk gift shops and pickleball courts. And this year of COVID containing as well more than 200 tents and makeshift dwellings in which some of Los Angeles's unhoused lived. Those of you who read the New York Times Sunday magazine of July 18th know exactly what I'm talking about. You've even seen the pictures. July 18th. More than a quarter of the nation's unhoused population lives right here in California. The richest state in the United States. More than a quarter. 41,000 of these live in Los Angeles. Of those, 3,100 live in Venice, immediately adjacent to Santa Monica. These are my neighbors. I see them every day. So what does the theology and theodicy in our Sedra have to say about that? Should we assume that God only correlates a full and happy and meaningful life with the behavior of just the Israelites? Should we assume that God pays no attention to the other nations of the world? Hardly, actually, definitely not. The prophet Amos makes the situation abundantly clear. God holds all of the nations in equal regard. As with our own children, each nation is different. Each nation has its own unique relationship with God, but each nation is in relationship with God. Should we then assume that God sets moral and ethical standards only for the Jews? Definitely not. Judaism has forever taught as part of its worldview that God is universally concerned not only with all of humanity, but with nature itself, with the cosmos itself. Tikkun olam, no matter how expressed, is never intended to be a mandate solely placed before the Jews. Then do we necessarily assume that those living in makeshift shelters along my walk, by the way, of whom it is estimated that 60% are mentally ill, among the others are drug dealers, and those, some of whom physically and verbally assault others, addicts of all kinds, as well as young runaways, the economically crushed, the hopeless, who have no way to exit their situations by themselves, most of whom seem to care very little about the garbage and the trash that they accumulate around themselves. Do we assume that they have somehow earned their fate? That they somehow deserve their living conditions? That they've made conscious choices that brought them down to such a challenging situation? Where is the Eikev in all of this? Where is the quid pro quo that guarantees that how we lived is shaped by our faithfulness to what God expects of us? Where is the connection between our living conditions and our faithfulness to God and our caring for others? I've become tormented by these questions as I take my daily walk. Tormented. My beloved teacher, Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, seems to pull God out of the equation, accepting the manner in which the post-biblical rabbis saw that more and more of the human condition is being placed in our own hands, while God self-limits, pulls back any divine involvement. What we fix, Yitz, what we fix will be fixed. What we don't fix, God won't fix for us, will never be fixed. For Yitz, God is both ethical and self-limiting. A God who places before us the truth that the world is not structured so as to provide us with what we deserve or to protect us from what we don't deserve. I have to think long and hard about that. The unhoused of Venice are now being relocated to city-provided housing, and they will be given a full array of social services. At least that is the horribly long-delayed political promise. This week, for the first time in many months, I can see the sand and the ocean again. And tourists are slowly returning to what used to be a bustling vacation setting. The unhoused are now just about totally out of sight. But will they be out of mind? And by the way, talking about Venice, are your unhoused and needy and poor and suffering out of your minds? That decision cannot and will not be made by God. It can only be made by us, Eikev. Eikev. It can only be made by us. Shabbat Shalom.